Well, the 2021 NFL season closing in on the end of its new 17-game schedule. 14 of its 32 teams set to qualify for the postseason, 7 each from the AFC and the NFC, with only the number 1 seeds getting byes on top of home field advantage. And the AFC playoff picture is a wild one. 16 teams in the conference. 13 of them have records of 500 or better. And as it stands right now, we've got the Chiefs in first place in the AFC West, the Patriots first place in the AFC East, the Titans in the South, and the Bengals in the North. But as we know, that can all change very quickly. So let's welcome in our John Breech to kind of break down all of this for us. Now, the Dolphins have completely flipped their season around, rattling off 6 straight wins. That division is once again chasing the Patriots. What are the chances Miami makes it to the playoffs? I mean, they've got to go through the Saints, the Titans, and the Patriots down the stretch.
Yeah, I'm not feeling real good about the Dolphins' chances right now. Look, they are one of the hottest teams in football, but I think they just have too many teams ahead of them in the playoff race right now. They're sitting at 7-7. There's a few teams at 8-6. You have the Steelers lurking at 7-6-1. And then you look at their schedule down the stretch. We see they have 2 of the remaining 3 games on the road. And those last 3 games give them the 5th hardest schedule of any team in the NFL down the stretch. And I think the only way the Dolphins have a chance to get in is if they win all 3 of those. And I just don't think it's going to happen. So what we're going to see is that they're not going to make the playoffs. They're going to finish maybe 9-8, and they're going to go in the offseason wondering how the heck they lost to Jacksonville back in October. And that's going to be the one where they're thinking, man, if we would have won that, we would have made the playoffs. But we didn't, and now we're sitting at home, and Urban Meyer's probably laughing at us. So, yes, I do not think the Dolphins are going to get in.
It's those games that are kind of in the middle of the season that you're like, is it that big of a deal? And then you realize it's that big of a deal. Now, the Steelers, they're at 7-6-1, AFC North team in the mix after their big win over the Titans. They moved ahead of the Browns after Cleveland fell to the Raiders. Now, Pittsburgh, now 9th in the standings. How do you like their shot to push it into the postseason?
Yeah, the Steelers are in an interesting situation because that tie to the Lions, although not ideal, probably makes them feel a little bit better because if they win out, they're 10-6-1, and that probably will get them in the playoffs. They had a great comeback win against the Titans on Sunday, as you just mentioned, and they might get to play a depleted Chiefs team. The Chiefs have Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill on the COVID list right now. Those are 2 huge weapons, and if they're out, that makes this a very winnable game for Kansas City. But I do think if the Steelers are going to make the postseason, they are going to have to win out because they have that bunch of 8-win teams ahead of them, and the only way they're going to be able to match them is if they at least get to 10 wins. And just looking at that schedule, look, even if they somehow knock off the Chiefs, the Browns are going to be equally desperate for a win in Week 17 because they're going to be in the playoff race. The Ravens are going to be equally desperate for a win because both those teams might have a chance to win the AFC North. So I do think Pittsburgh, again, can get the 9 wins, but I have a hard time seeing them go 3-0 down the stretch. So I do not think Pittsburgh is going to get in.
Winning out is definitely a tough task, that's for sure. Taking a look at the AFC South, it's coming down to the Titans and the Colts. Tennessee holding on to that top spot in the division for the moment with no Derrick Henry and Indy surging. What do you think the chances are that we see Jonathan Taylor and the Colts catch the Titans?
Yeah, if you would have asked me 2 weeks ago, I would have said 0%, but then you could have showed that clip right now and we could have just laughed at me because it's not 0% anymore. The Colts are on a roll, and now I feel like this is kind of a 50-50 thing. If you look in the odds in Vegas, the Colts are at plus 475, so not really being given much of a chance. But I think it is much closer than that. And I think based on what happens in Week 16, Tennessee has to play the 49ers. The Colts play the Cardinals. If the Colts pick up that game, I think they can win this. The one thing, Indy does have to finish a game ahead of Tennessee because the Titans swept the season series. But if they catch them in the standings this week, that gives them 2 weeks to pick up that final game. So I think Week 16 is pivotal. And if I had to make a pick right now, I'll go out on a limb and say the Colts end up winning the division.
Ooh, I like it. Bold statements. Makes me happy. The Chargers missed their chance to get into first place after losing to the Chiefs at home to open Week 15, but they still hold the wild card spot. So where does your confidence lay with LA?
Yeah, I feel like if we look at all the AFC wildcard contenders, the Chargers are probably the one I'm the most confident in right now. They're sitting at 8-6. I think 10-7 is going to be good enough to get a wild card berth in the AFC. So really the Chargers, they don't have to win out like these other teams we were talking about, the Steelers and the Dolphins. If they go 2-1, they should be in pretty good shape. And you look at that schedule. They've got the Texans this week. Yes, the Chargers have a few COVID issues right now, Austin Eckler, Joey Bosa, but they should still win that game as long as Justin Herbert, Keenan Allen, and all their other offensive stars are on the field. And then they have 2 divisional games. You feel like the Chargers can split there, maybe go 2-0 there. So as long as they go 2-1 down the stretch, which I do think will happen, they'll get in. And so I like the Chargers' chances a lot.
All right, we got a group 1 here. This is fun. So the Raiders moved to 7-7 on the season after beating the Browns, now 7-7. Oakland facing off against the Broncos, who are 7-7. You're supposed to say 7-7 there. All right, it's a game that basically amounts to a playoff elimination. So between the Browns, the Broncos, and the Raiders, which team do you have the most confidence in?
I just want to see who would be more embarrassed if I didn't say anything.
I mean, I'll go with it, but I was hoping you would jump in.
Well, you know what? Out of these 3 teams, I'm actually secretly hoping that the Raiders make the playoffs because I would love nothing more to see a playoff game in Las Vegas. So we'll get a taste of what that Super Bowl will be like in a few years. But out of these 3 teams, I like the Raiders a lot more than the other 2 because, for one, they have that tiebreaker over the Cleveland Browns. They've already beaten the Broncos once this season, and I think they have the most manageable schedule down the stretch. And so, I don't think a 7-7 team is going to get in the playoffs. And hey, this could completely blow up in my face if the Raiders lose this Sunday to Denver. But the Broncos are starting Drew Lock this week. I think that gives the Raiders a big edge in that game. So if one of those 3 teams somehow manages to make the playoffs, I do think it will be the Raiders.
And I apologize, clearly meaning Vegas there, not Oakland. My heart's still a little bit in Oakland for those fans out there. But John, thank you so much, as always, for joining us here on CBS Sports HQ. Always a pleasure. Love the festive look that we've got going on. And if you want some more of your daily fix of NFL news and analysis, you got to look no further than the Pick 6 podcast. Our guys, they're getting you up to speed each day in about 30 minutes with what's trending in the NFL so that you are always in the know. You got to listen up today.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.